Without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. Or better yet, it's probably best I have them introduce themselves. I will say their names and then I'll let them take over their introduction. So first off, we're going to start with Mr. Brian Edmonds from SVN. Can we get an applause for Mr. Brian Edmonds? Just to give you a quick little tidbit, I actually had one of our panelists fall off, respectfully speaking. Sorry about that. So, and Mr. Edmonds called me, and
I got the mic.
All right, let me say it. Mr. Edmonds called me and said that he would definitely be obliged to come take part in this event. So he literally within, 24 or 48 hours, decided to take part in this event. So let's give him a round of applause one more time for dropping what he had to do tonight and making it over here. Next up, we have on the far right, Mr. Randall Dawson. Mr. Randall Dawson came all the way from Chicago. He works for CBRE. He is one of my mentors, and some people say he looks like my father. So it's natural that we came together as a mentor and mentee. We actually work in the same business line. We work in the valuations group within CBRE. And just to show you how lacking commercial real estate is of diversity, I am one of two on the East Coast, excluding Miami, right? Because Miami, that's a little bit of a cheat code right there. So from Boston to Atlanta, I am one of two. I think Mr. Dawson is one of two. I think there's another brother in Denver. Right. And then there's one more on the West Coast. And two of us five were hired within the past year because the company was trying to get more diverse. So 2 years ago, just three of us. So let's give a round of applause for Mr. Dawson one more time for coming all the way from Chicago. Yes, Chi-Town in the house. Next up, we have Ms. Dominique Kazmir. Ms. Dominique used to work for CBRE. I don't know if you guys saw on the screen, but she actually did a promo video for our African American networking group. Since leaving CBRE, she has worked for the city of Philadelphia as well. Now she works for Thomas Jefferson University and Jefferson Healthcare, she's a vice president managing their real estate portfolio. So this is a great place to start and continue a very successful and prosperous career going forward. So one more time for Mrs. Dominique Kazmir. And last but not least, we have a young up-and-comer, Mr. Tony Banks from Philadelphia. Mr. Tony works for Wolf Commercial Real Estate. He was one of the first panelists to jump on board back when I reached out to everybody in late November, December. So I'm glad that he can make it here tonight. So going into our discussion, we're gonna go ahead and start with just an easy softball question. If each of you panelists can answer, how did you get into the industry and why did you choose commercial real estate?
All right. Okay. My father was a real estate broker in Topeka, Kansas, and he owned a lot of houses. And one of my jobs as a 12-year-old was to walk house to house with a little checkbook and collect $75. Okay, and I was shocked that adults would lie to you on why they didn't have the money. And so anyway, so that was my my introduction to commercial real estate.
Can't go a little deeper than that, but we don't have to. So this mic is a little weak. So the way I got involved in commercial.
The way I got involved in commercial real estate. No.
All right. Okay. Okay, that's better. So the way I was involved in commercial real estate was I went to Pennsylvania State University. I don't know if anyone is here from Penn State, but got a degree in facilities planning, programming, and management, and transitioned to go to work for a corporation here in Philadelphia, an insurance company in their facilities and real estate department. And the facilities area is based around oversight of design and construction. And I started my career corporately doing that for this Reliance Insurance Company, and transitioned into actually doing commercial real estate, which was going out looking for locations nationally for this organization, for the company.
Good evening. I did not go the traditional path in commercial real estate. I didn't even know you can have a career in commercial real estate. Growing up, I was told to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and nurse. Those were basically my options. So going to college, I went the untraditional route, and I got a degree in philosophy. Most people say, what can you do with a degree in philosophy? I didn't know, I just loved it. Ended up working for JP Morgan as a stockbroker. Did that for several years, and then some guy convinced me to marry him and have kids. So I changed my career, and I reestablished myself here in Philadelphia. And I started working for an economic development agency company, organization. It was Philadelphia Workforce Investment Development Corporation, but I ran a program called Show Me the Money, helping nonprofit organizations get grants. Make a long story short, I partnered with the city of Philadelphia, and we did a pitch to IKEA to attract them to the city as to why they should come into an urban setting. It was the first time that they even considered coming into an urban setting. Their model before was always in suburbs. And we convinced them to come to Delaware Avenue. So that was like, wow, big win. And this guy that I was working with, Peter Iacovani, he passed away, and he said, you should get into commercial real estate. And I was like, wow, I never even thought about that, like in regards to a career. I was golfing, and I met this guy. And I was golfing with the crew, and he's like, you can golf and you know these guys? You should do commercial real estate. And I was like, wow, this is the second time somebody told me I should do commercial real estate. And I took him up on his offer. The next day I was like, hey, you told me I should do commercial real estate. Teach me commercial real estate. And I've never looked back since. So that was my introduction into commercial real estate.
You didn't say I hired you.
You did hire me, but like you hired me.
So I didn't even realize that you was at JP Morgan, but I have a similar path. I was actually working the stock market. I was with Goldman Sachs at the time, and
I was at 61.
And I remember one of my mentors asked me, what would I do if I could do anything and money didn't, and it wasn't about money, what would I do? At this point, I'm like, look, I love trading stocks, so I wouldn't trade this. I would do it for free, to be honest, right? But then I thought about it. I was like, hey, I would love to sell a big building, right? And so as time went by, I thought about it. Then I started looking at the numbers and trending things and seeing what was there. At that point, I realized that the market was very soft for multifamily. At that point, this is before the housing bubble popped, and I'm like, well, this market seemed like it's untouched and it's ripe for the picking. And I got into real estate in about 2008 at the turn of the housing crisis, and everybody told me I was stupid for doing apartments. My thought was I was never going to ever sell a house, and I didn't want to sell a house. I knew that I was going to go through apartments, pick up ownership, and then carry that over to commercial real estate. So I did that basically, and did pretty well with the multifamily side of it. After I had a book of business, I decided to get into commercial real estate, and it's been pretty good for me so far. So keep trying it out.
Thank you. On this one? Yes. All right, so thank you so much for all the panelists sharing their stories of how they got into the industry. The next question I have for you is, for the young people out here, we have some young professionals, we have some experienced professionals, we also have some college students. What advice would you give them trying to break into the industry, besides coming to this event, after this event?
Well, my suggestion would be, all right, one, I think to be successful in commercial real estate, you have to have grit, you have to have hustle, okay? And I think that you have to be true to yourself. I mean, commercial real estate is an ocean. CBRE has over 100,000 people, and there's a variety of jobs from brokerage to leasing to property management to construction to data analytics to graphic arts, copyright. So I think commercial real estate is a fantastic industry, but I think that you have to decide what you're really interested in, and I think there's a way for you to do that here inside commercial real estate.
Yeah, just echoing that, I think, this is a great opportunity to learn about commercial real estate, but I would encourage everyone to do research because there's a lot of different things you can do. I've spent a lot of my commercial real estate career doing commercial real estate brokerage, which is a totally commission-based area, and it's the feast of famine. You can make a lot of money some years, and some years you can starve. So unlike my colleague here, which is appraisals generally is a area where it's salaried and it's not?
No. So
Oh, I'm sorry. That shows you what I'm not an appraiser. Okay, let me pass it over.
So appraisal is effectively 100% commission business. Okay, you get a draw. Okay, but that sort of just pays your health insurance. Okay, but that's not enough to live. So you sort of eat what you kill. So basically, I tell my daughters, she was 22 and she wanted to know, well, what is it that you really do? And I said, basically what I do is I write book reports and I get paid for each one I write. And the more I write, the more I get paid. So, but no, I think brokerage is 100% commission, appraisals 100% commission, but there's a lot of other areas of commercial real estate that are salary based and that maybe there's a bonus at the end of the year. But you have to pick whatever you decide you want to do.
Learning every day. I've been doing this for like a lot of years, and this is yeah. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I will say this though, commercial brokerage is more transaction based, which can take long period of time. I mean, whereas appraisal, and correct me if I'm wrong, is more consultative based. So you get an assignment and you kind of generate fees as opposed to you work on a deal and 2 years later you get a big check. Kind of thing. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, thank you. I want to get something here.
I mean, basically what I would say is appraisal is that you hit base hits every day. Okay, brokerage, you hit grand slams. Okay, so, but the big money's in grand slams.
Sometimes.
They're my cougars. Now I'm on the corporate side now. I used to be a broker, but I transitioned because brokerage is very transactional. It is, you do eat what you kill, and I'm still an eat what you kill kind of girl. But I just transitioned onto the transactional side married with what happens long term. So it was one thing to do a deal and then walk away and do another deal and then walk away, but I wanted to know a level of sustainability. Did my deal make an impact? How much of an impact did it make? What happens to the business after we've done that transaction? How could we have done it better? How do we grow? So I was able to do that with the City of Philadelphia in regards to managing a whole entire portfolio. When you're managing a portfolio, you have to look at asset classes a different way. You have to look at investments from a different perspective. So for me, it's about the investment of where do I want to go next? What's bleeding my portfolio? Where should I cut my losses? So now I do that for Jefferson, and it's interesting going from a mixed portfolio to a portfolio that focuses strictly in one industry. So there's a variety, and from this perspective, I don't eat what I kill anymore. I am rewarded though. And the more, so the portfolio size, you get compensated based on your portfolio size. So at Jefferson here, it's estimated to be a $6.5 billion portfolio of real estate. We have over 14 campuses, and we don't even know how many buildings we own. Not at this point. But I say that to say you get to impact communities in a different way. The reason why I took this role here is because we're trying to redesign what commercial real estate looks like in certain communities. So there's a whole collaborative health equity. How does health show up in different communities? Not just a doctor's office or an urgent care facility. How do we redesign what health looks like? So for me, that's interesting because it's like, wow, you get to curate what health looks like in neighborhoods that traditionally didn't have that,
So for me, I would say, basically, and I ask a question for you guys. I like to do this. I like to get people else involved that way. It's not the pressure's on me. Who likes to hunt? So what I can tell you is there's no commercial brokers in this room except for there and here, right? So at the end of the day, right, hunting, like we look at hunting as a sport, and hunting's not a sport. Hunting is a means to survival. And if that's the first thing you need to understand with being a broker. If you're commission based, you have to understand you eat what you kill, and that's a real thing. So the best advice I can tell you is if you wanna hunt, yeah, then this is fun. You know what I mean? But if you don't like to hunt, then this isn't going to work for you. This isn't going to be the career for you. One thing I read before I got into commercial real estate was like 90% of the people who get into commercial real estate the first year basically drop out of it, and the second year that number is equally just as bad as 80%. So basically, if you have 100 people get into commercial real estate, that first year 90 of those people drop off. That following year, you still only have 2 people left. So one thing that helped me get through my first few years in commercial real estate was looking to my left and looking to my right. And as much as I like the person to my left and to my right, I realized that one of us wasn't going to be here, and I would be damned if it wasn't going to be me. And I hate to say it that way, and you have relationships and stuff like that, but you have to realize that this is a hunt or be hunted business. And if you don't want that, then commercial real estate isn't for you. But guess what? All of us are up here because we enjoyed that hunt. And the same thing with every other commercial broker that you're going to see. So that's the best I can do.
So I just want to clarify, make sure everyone understands. So I was a commercial real estate manager like Dominique is now. And so there's different areas of commercial real estate. I want to make sure to clarify. Tony's talking about commercial real estate brokerage, which is, and appraisal.
You're right.
Okay, so which is jobs that are commission based, but there's other jobs in commercial real estate that are salary based. Dominique's salaried now, right? Now, right? So, and I was salaried. I just fast forwarding, I said a snippet of how I got into commercial real estate, but just continuing that a little bit. I went to this insurance company. I ended up being there for 13 years. I went from facilities to being in real estate to being the director of real estate facilities nationally, and we had offices all around the country. Ended up leaving there 13 years, having been the manager of real estate, making a pretty good salary, having done real estate transactions in 38 of the 50 states, and so it really set me up with a great background to do some other things. I decided to get into brokerage, which, as Tony said, is feast or famine. But I just want to clarify, there are other positions. There's, brokerage is, you gotta be competitive. You gotta, go for it. And like I said, you got some really good years, potentially some really bad years as well. So just wanted to add that point of clarity. If that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm just going to build on that point. Okay, CB in the U.S. there's about 30,000 employees. 50% of them are on the brokerage side. The other 50% are not, so they're on the salaried side. So there's a lot of jobs on the salaried side. So you don't have to, get into commercial real estate and be on the brokerage side. It may be a smart play to, get on the salary side coming in, sort of learning the business, learning the ropes a little bit, and then at some point in the future, if you want to get on a commission side, you can do that. But you don't have to, and some people work their entire careers, 30, 40 years, and they're never on the commission side.
Let me have one.
To your point, there's research. So if you like data and analytics and studying people or studying asset class or the market, you could definitely do research. Go ahead, stand up. You guys are the research people. They make us look smart. If that's your thing where you like to understand numbers, data, analytics, there's research. Also, there's marketing.
I have an open position, just so everybody
You should do it. You should do it. Because what people don't realize about research is it's not just the local market, it's national, it's global. There's a lot of different aspects to research, so you travel a lot. It's very sexy too. There's also marketing. Everything, there you go, marketing. Everything that we do in commercial real estate is all about the look. How does it look? How is it positioned? What angle did you get? Different things like that. So if you're into the creative space, you like photography, you like positioning certain things, you like doing videos, different things like that, there's a job here for you as well. So real estate is one of the few professions that touches everything. If you like contracts, if you're like an attorney and you like contract law, there's a position here for you. So there's nothing really off if you're an engineer, project management, construction management. There you go, there you go, there you go. All of that is commercial real estate. So it is not limited. And a lot of programs like CBRE, JLL, Cushman & Wakefield, all the big firms, Savills, you could do a rotation. So if you're unsure of what you want to do in commercial real estate, you could rotate for 2 years and you kind of study each discipline. And then at the end, you can figure out, okay, I belong here. I'm a hunter, or, I'm a grazer, or I'm a draft, like whatever it is.
Well, I want to add to that. I mean, and to the point of what you guys all said, the biggest thing is that information makes you dangerous in this industry, and that's the biggest thing. So it doesn't matter if you are a broker, if you're a researcher, or anything, any of those things. It's all information, and I can assure you that no matter what position you take on, in that first year, you're going to feel like, oh my God, I felt like I learned so much. Right? There's a huge learning curve, no matter what you're already doing and how much it's already tied to commercial real estate. But that learning curve, you're constantly and you're always learning in this industry, no matter what it is that you're doing. So knowledge, you pick up as much knowledge to be dangerous in here.
You're about as fast as So we're starting to think here.
Yeah. So I just want to point this out. Is Joe Ritchie still here? He left. Okay. So there's a brother here earlier, Joe Ritchie. He works for Brandywine Realty Trust, one of the big REITs here in this area, and he's salaried, but he's getting paid. I'm sure. I never talked about he get paid, but he get paid. So the point of that is the overarching dynamic in real estate is wealth creation, right? It's an industry that if you get in the right position, we've talked about a lot of different scenarios. I started my own firm. I was the first African-American, first minority-owned firm in this area 17 years ago. Good years and bad years. But it's a great industry for folks of color to get involved in if you get into the right position, because there's a lot of wealth to be created here. And that's beyond everything else we say here. Risk, yeah. Challenge, yeah. Barriers to entry, yes. But if you get in and get in the right opportunity, it's unlike many other industries, it's an industry that can really see some great wealth creation. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say too, there's different sectors. So Brian talked about office. There's retail, there's industrial, there's multifamily markets, there's development, there's hotels. I mean, there's a lot, hospitality. There's a lot of different areas that you can go into within commercial real estate. There's medical, there's universities, place. So you don't just have to stay in just one dimensional world. You can play in a lot of different worlds.
I'm sorry. So she's making me think about things. So Dominique came and, she said, gave her an opportunity. And so I'm an office guy. I do office space. And so we were talking to Dominique. She's like, I don't really want to do retail. I want to do retail. Right? I'm like, I'll do retail. So, but I mean, to her credit, I mean, we talked, and she eventually went to work for another firm, Cushman & Wakefield, initially before coming here, which gave her opportunity in retail. So just want to give a real world opportunity, real world example.
I'm sorry. All right, Tony, I ain't gonna talk.
Thank you so much. And just to give a little plug about our company, CBRE, we are the largest commercial real estate company in the world. We have literally an office in every city around the globe. So this is a great place to start. So you want to stay connected with some of our diversity leaders. And speaking of diversity leaders, I want to introduce to you our diversity team. It's not just me, I am co-leading this effort. We also have a lot of other leaders here. So I'm gonna call out their names one by one, and then when they all stand, if you guys don't mind giving a round of applause. First up, Mr. Alex Sandoval. Mr. Alex Sandoval, he leads our OLA, which is our Hispanic group. So he leads those efforts. He keeps in touch with all the Hispanic organizations like Prospanica and Alpha in the city, and he keeps up to date with what they're doing, and he tells them what we're doing as well. So thank you for your help, Mr. Alex. Next up, we have Stephanie Robinson, Philly native, Uptown. Stephanie is a marketer here at CBRE, and she leads the, it's called ANG, the African American Networking Group here at CBRE. So Stephanie had helped me with this event. Next up, we have Mr. Tan Gang. Tan heads the Asian Pacific Network. So he leads the Asian American front for us here at CBRE. And Mr. Tan recently just started the Asian chapter, the APN chapter here in Philadelphia. So let's give him another round of applause for that. Jen, did she leave? Okay, Jen left, okay. Let's also give a round of applause for Rebecca Wright. She is our office manager. She's been helping us put this event together. So the thing is, some other cities have whole chapters of Hispanic, Asian, and Blacks within their office. Philadelphia has lacked so much in diversity that we can't even start a chapter. So the few diverse individuals in this office had to come together, build a group called the Diversity Task Force, and then we're going out putting on these events. We're also having a newsletter we send out quarterly. We host events within our Philadelphia office and the suburban office or the downtown office to help provide that inclusive environment, etc. And the plan is to start bringing in more minorities to build different chapters and have a more diverse employee base. It's unfortunate that it's 2020, and I have to tell you guys this, but you got to start somewhere, right? So going further, you guys talked about how you got into the industry. You guys talked about what you actually do in the industry. Can you tell the audience, what is your biggest challenge as being a minority in commercial real estate?
And let me ask one thing,
Yes.
because you hit on something, and you probably hit on this later, but it goes we should talk about why, we should talk to the audience about why there's little diversity in the industry, right? So you kind of teed that up. I want to make sure we talk about that before.
You want to talk about it now?
We can if you want. I don't want to take over here. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I mean, from where I stand and why I'm so passionate about this effort, the reason why is because there is some wealth to be made in this industry. Unfortunately, we don't get I don't want to generalize, but I feel that minorities do not have the opportunity to get a seat at the table when it comes to making those decisions of wealth creation or, selling a building, a major commercial real estate property, and or financing and or developing. Also, this industry is a little different compared to your more traditional industries. That being, law, banking, accounting, etc. They tend to have more of a clear career path. For instance, you go to school for 4 years, and then you get into a program at KPMG or PwC, and then they kind of fill you into a role and do that for 2 or 3 years, right? Unfortunately, in this industry, there isn't that structured career path. It's really, and you can say this even about residential real estate, but definitely for commercial real estate, it's really about all who you know, right? And then it's all about who is mentoring you as well. And typically, it's, there's a potential to make a lot of money. And the structured program isn't there. So people tend to bring in their own. Unfortunately, we have not made that kind of progression in this industry, But in Philadelphia, we're starting that today.
I want to get the mic before. The reason why I think we're lacking in this industry is because there's two major reasons. One, it's extremely entrepreneurial. This is not, oh, I'm starting a corporate gig, everything. No, you eat what you kill, you set up your own business. You may have a name behind you, but your brand is your name, and you create your own book of clientele. So you have to go out, you have to meet people, you have to translate that connection into business dollars. That's number one. It's very entrepreneurial, and not everybody is an entrepreneur by design. The second part is you have to come into this game with money. You cannot come here and not have anything saved up and do brokerage. It may take you 6 months to a year to close a deal, right, Brian? And in order to do that, you have to have a stockpile where you're sitting off of and you can eat for a year. And you have to be very diligent in regards to budgeting and how you spend your dollars. Otherwise, you will starve. So if we want to be very real about this, a lot of us do not have the equity or the stockpile of resources to fund ourselves for 6 months to a year. And that's what it takes to get into the brokerage side on a real scale. Not to say that you can't overcome it, but you have to have that discipline. And a lot of people want the easy cherry, like, oh, I could sit here and make $50,000 a year. This business, you're not going to make money in your first year. I don't care what anybody says. And if they say you're going to make money in your first year as a broker, they're lying to you. Not in commercial real estate. It will take you a good 3 years to actually have a book of business where you're turning and you're actually eating on a consistent basis. It takes you about 3 years. Prior to that, you're a little starving. And you're going to watch your friends, they're doing good, they're rising up the corporate ladder, and you're like, why am I still starving? And that's the real grit. And when you're coming out of college and you've been broke all those years and you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna make money, that's not this. Like, it takes a while to build that. And that's the ugly truth about getting into this business. However, if you stay on this grind long enough, you will be fine. You will always be able to eat. Like, even though I translated out of brokerage, I'm still eating. I will always eat. And even if I'm not at my corporate gig, I will still eat. I know how to eat now. I know. I am still a broker. I am still a broker. Don't ever get it twisted. I might be brokering for myself, but you learn how to fend for yourself, and you learn how to make a living for yourself, so you're no longer relying on other people. But I think we don't have enough equity in the game to start off, and it's very entrepreneurial. Those are my two takeaways.
Oh, you giving it to me? Like he's a camera. Well, yeah, I do want to say something. So this is a historically a friends and family business, and by that I mean folks that have positions in commercial real estate bring their friends and family in, and it's been that way for a really long time, and unfortunately, it continues to be that way. So that, I mean, that's one of the barriers to entry, and we're all, up here trying to do something about that. Mm-hmm. Did you want
Yeah, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal several years ago, and it said that people of color represented 0.3% of the professionals in commercial real estate. Okay, so it's harder to get into commercial real estate as a career than it is to get into Harvard, Stanford, Penn, or whatever school you want to talk about. But that's why it's important to get into the other sides of commercial real estate, okay? I mean, the salaried sides of commercial real estate. I mean, I often tell people that are starting out, get into the research side, because it's easier to get in that path. You'll learn the business, you'll learn the different sectors of the business, and the different asset classes. And then at some point down the road, maybe you can transition into brokerage if you want to do that. But I mean, I can't overemphasize, people have made 30, 40-year careers not being in brokerage, so I wouldn't equate commercial real estate with brokerage. I mean, that's just a career path. But I think you need to look at all those other paths, and they can be fulfilling, they can be enriching, and so really think about the other career paths. other than brokerage.
Spoken like the only broker that's not out there. The three guys here.
So what I would say to all of your points, and kind of to add on to what you said, I think another thing is even exposure, right? I'm pretty sure most of you guys did research on it, and you read this article, you read this, you read all these different things, and you're like, hey, I'm ready for it, and I know these different things. And then the first day you start, you realize everything that you read online and everything else was BS, right? So what happens, and to your point, is that you don't have someone that's going to be able to honestly tell you what it takes to be in this industry and how to actually learn the industry itself. And so a lot of times we're doing it through trial by fire, and you don't have a stockpile of money saved up. In my case, it was a little different because I had already a career with a group. And if anybody understands what Goldman Sachs does, they are, when they say they're the smartest guys in the room, they truly are. I'm not saying I am, I'm saying they are. But the one thing that you learn is about research and really trying to dig into certain things of where to go with it, how to get it, and how to get money out of it. Make no mistakes about that. Commercial real estate have a ton of money in it, right? And so you recognize that and you say, well, I want a piece of that. And so I look at things, I minimize everything. And people say, well, hey, I don't respond to different things. It's not that, I just don't care at the end of the day. I hate to say it like that. I minimize everything to the point. So this building could be on fire, and I'm like, all right, well, either we're gonna die or we're gonna live. It's just that simple. And I hate to break it down that way, but that's your two options. Die or live. So what are you going to do? You're going to sit there and lose your head and die in the building? No, I feel like living today, so I'm going to sit there and take my time and get out of here the right way. So come up with the plan that makes sense for you and realize what your plan is and really try to stick your landing as best you can. You try to lean on people and try to, obviously pick up friends, and you try to look for people that look like you in this industry. And the sad part is that when I look forward, I didn't see people that look like me in this industry. One thing I do want to give Brian credit for is that, dude, you've been around for a very long time. You did it, and so seeing guys like Brian in this industry made me realize, not because you're just in the industry saying that it's a possibility for someone like me that looks like me. The other thing is, like I said, I minimize everything. If I see 1,000 people done it, I know that it's been done 1,000 times. It's just that simple. So why not me? So it's easy to question yourself and question your abilities, but at the same time, why not just minimize and say, hey, everyone else did it, why not me? Why shouldn't I make $1 million? Why shouldn't I make this type of money? So don't be afraid to take those chances, and then just honestly try to get as much exposure and lean on other people. And I do want to give one quick shout out, and they understand this, right? I got into this industry, and when I started with the organization I started with, it's hard to find people that look like you or that understand your plight and stuff like that. And what I can tell you is Jamar back here, this is my dude, right? We were at Legend together, and we've had some hard conversations, but you try to find someone that you can talk to about real stuff. You know what I mean? The good, the bad, and the ugly. And you realize that it's not just you that's going through these issues. Hell, it's not just you, the black guys, going through this stuff. It's that white guy that went through it too. Everyone goes through this in this industry. You know what I mean? Getting kicked in the groin is getting kicked in the groin. That doesn't have color on it. You know what I mean? So you understand that, and that makes you realize that, you know what, we're going to get through this together. And Jamar will tell you, we've had that conversation like, yo, bro, we staying in this thing together, and we're gonna make it together. And so what I would tell you is make sure that you find people that's not, and I don't want to get away from color in this and say this is not about diversity, but find people who match your thought process, your skill set, and the things that you look for in people. So it's not just, look, I like Brian a lot, right? But it's not that I'm gonna look at Brian and say, well, hey, Brian's gonna be the guy that's gonna teach me everything I understand in this industry just because he's black. Like, that's kind of taken for granted all the other things that he possesses. And all
you saying I offered you a job, you turned me down? Go ahead.
That's not the case, but you look at, I can't just look at Brian and say, hey, he's a black guy and he's in this industry. I need to look at Brian for the things that he actually possessed, the grit, the grind, his emotional intelligence, and how he navigated through. Those are the things that I try to liken myself to and say that's how I look at who I want to associate myself with and work with in those regards to look towards for mentorship.
I just want to add on to your point, Tony. And you make an important point about that, but I just want to say your network has to change. Mm-hmm. And so who your clients are in this realm may not be who your friends are. in a different realm. And you have to be okay with being uncomfortable in different networking pools, because this is not the networking pool that you're going to do a majority of your deals with. If you do, that's amazing, but you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and sometimes being the unicorn in the room. And if you're okay with that, and you're not looking at yourself in that capacity, and you're fine with bridging gaps or making connections even when there are no connections, then that's something that you have to be comfortable with doing in this space too.
Thank you for that. And just to touch on what you guys were talking about, just from my own experience being in the industry, the net worth of different, I guess you would say, races, white, black, Asian, Hispanic, are different. And so I think the average net worth of, and don't quote me, but I read this somewhere, of the average Caucasian family is maybe 100,000, and of the black family might be, I don't even know if it's 1,000. Now don't quote me, but I think that from my own experience, I will say that my upbringing was a lot different than my coworkers. So coming into this industry, I have different barriers that my coworkers don't have. For instance, most of my coworkers that are in positions that make money, et cetera, or even salaried, probably went to prep school, probably grew up and went to Lower Merion High School, or lived on the main line. They live in Philadelphia now, which is fine. I'm not knocking them for that. But, you know, from my background, growing up inside Philadelphia, being the oldest of 5, graduating college and having to sleep on my mom's couch and help pay bills, my upbringing, my entrance to the job market is different. I'm just talking about myself. I'm not generalizing black people or people of color, but you tend to find that storyline more with people of color. Hence, there's a lack in starting in places like commercial real estate when they first start off. Just to change it up a little bit.
Just touch on that really quick. I'm not going to do a Brian here. No, but that's actually a really good point in the sense that you're saying that, and to your point of the friends and family, right? What had happened is that person X, Y, and Z went to school, went to private school with this person, and they have things that make them familiar with that person. So it makes it a lot easier to talk to, right? And so for us, you know, all right, I'm a straight shooter, and what I'm going to say to you guys is going to seem a little not rough, but so what would happen is in a typical conference or anything like that, and all these guys can verify this is very true. You walk into the room, and everyone in the room is white, right? And so what you walk in, you're like, okay, cool, I'm here, right? But then you hear the different stories that's happening. Hey, I went to Duke, I went to Purdue, I went to this, and I went to that. And I'm like, well, no, I didn't do all that. So, you know what I mean? So I don't have that relatable story with that next person. So then we talk about, hey, I grew up here, I went to church here, I went this place here, this, and other for. None of those things connect with the person that's next to me that's in my office, whether it be the secretary, whether it be the office manager, whether it be the other brokers. There's no connectivity there. So a lot of times you sit there and isolate yourself and say, well, I don't belong here. And I think the bigger question is, you should ask yourself, well, why don't you belong here? Because that's not actually true. You have to be a beacon of hope for that next person that comes along, you know, in that industry, the same way that Brian is, so, and other people.
I will just say I use it to my advantage. Yeah. I never apologize for who I am. I bring my voice to the table. I play up the fact that I am a black female. Yeah. I didn't grow up here. You know, I play all the things that would quote unquote be negative or seen as a divergent into a positive for me. And I've used that voice at the table in regards to my X factor. You're not looking at it from this perspective, or you're not seeing it from this perspective. I never apologize for being a woman. I never apologize for being black. I never apologize for wearing my hair natural or straight. You know, like, I think you need to show up as who you are, and I think people respect you for being who you are and bringing what you do to the table, because that's where the extra added value comes into play. I remember when I was looking at markets and people thought I was crazy. I wanted to do deals on North Broad Street. People were like, North Broad Street? Why would you ever do North Broad Street? I'm like, are you kidding me? I see the potential there. You have art museum area, you have infrastructure there, you have access to transportation. All this development is going. Do you see the transactions that are going on? Temple's right here, Center City's expanding. I see the potential in North Broad Street. Everybody thought I was crazy. I knew it. I lived on North Broad Street in Fairmount before it was sexy. I remember when chickens were running around there. But I knew the area and I knew the potential of the area. And I was able to sell it. And we did, and I was with CBRE at the time, we did South by the Bynum Brothers. We put the restaurant there. And that started to shift the whole entire corridor of like, oh, wow. Then I picked up the Divine Lorraine and the Met. And it was just like, oh, Christian was with me. But like, and the Studebaker, like these could be great assets on North Broad Street. These assets can change, and this will change the dynamic of it. And now look at it. Nobody believed in North Broad Street. Same thing with Brewerytown. When I picked up projects in Brewerytown, they were like, Brewerytown, like who would go there? And I'm like, what? Brewerytown's the next Fishtown. And people were like, there's no retail in Brewerytown. I was like, watch, we're gonna curate retail in Brewerytown. And you get to network with developers, you start to follow the trends in regards to houses closing, you get to figure out who's amassing a lot of real estate. They need to make the area cool and sexy. You make brokerage friends with businesses that need to get in, and you start to curate a whole entire corridor. Now Brewerytown is semi-cool. But that all came together because we strategically placed retail in that corridor. And so what I'm saying is, people weren't looking at those markets as cool markets. But if you grew up in a certain market or a section of the city and you believe in it and you see the potential of it, use it to your advantage and leverage the hell out of it in regards to how you can reposition it and add the value that way. Yeah.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But to that point, you should be non-apologetic, right? And so one thing people always look at me and say, well, hey, you went to college. I didn't go to college. Let me be clear about that, right? And so I don't apologize for that at all. And to Dominique's point, I use that to my advantage. And the same thing, I grew up in North Philly. I'm a North Philly kid. Let's not get that twisted, right? And so I don't hide that from anybody. And I'll tell you, I grew up piss poor. I don't care, because that's not the end result for how I turned out. But what it does is that it gives the people in your old community or in your old neighborhood or neighborhoods that you know a voice. And what you don't realize, or what you may find out, is that in the positions that we are in, and a lot of times that we are that voice that allows for people to be heard and to add that resource to certain areas. And I can't tell you how many times that I've seen certain deals, I'm like, I'm not touching that deal. And it's like, well, because it's crap. And you know what? That's how my neighborhood turned to crap in the first place, because we kept putting crap there. And then you want me to think that it's okay. So in that regard, you are now the expert in that area, not because you're just claiming it, but you actually know the people there. You understand the people there. One thing I do even to this day is when I take on a listing or I look at a location, I don't look at the information that's online all the time. I look at it, I research all that stuff like that, but you know, if I'm looking at an area, you'll find me there, sitting there, looking at the people, seeing what's going on there, walking, talking to the people, because that's the thing that actually matters as far as honestly understanding who's there and how do you actually create some type of help for those guys. So don't apologize for it, you know.
I want to switch it up a little bit, and I mean, so we've been talking for a while, so I'd like to throw it out to the audience. And what questions do you guys have that we haven't touched on? Okay, go ahead.
I do think that everybody that there's what's your name? I'm Bridget Daniel from Wilco. Sorry, we are an integrator of technology and real estate, and I do think technology is going to be interesting. Not even just how the industry is running, the analytics, the platforms that are catering to what you all do, but also just the entry of more diversity. Because one, Dominique is like one of the only black woman that I know that even is at the table. But I think technology is going to really see a lot more opportunity to even service commercial real estate. So that's why I wanted to come, because I love all these people in this dais, and I think this is a great content. But I think the innovation side of this is going to get us a lot more play, and it's going to start chipping away the legacy business, like Ryan said. It's very friends and family. The technology is kind of running across a lot of it. So this is very exciting. I'm very glad to be here. And yeah, this is a good time to have this conversation.
Bridget, can everybody give a round of applause for Bridget? brought up technology and innovation because that is the next thing for real estate. So one of the things that I was approached at my last job at the city was selling space on my buildings. What I mean by space, just like the side of the building, or window space, so that people can put electronic ads and that it can constantly change. And it's because they can measure how many people are walking by that building, what type of economic background they're in, what they're interested in. And so I do think that technology is going to play a much different role than it's ever played in regards to real estate. And those will be new transactions in regards to, it won't just be doing a lease, but it will be doing a lease on the building sides. It will be the air rights. In regards to, work for it. But not only that, the new banks are wireless companies. They're the AT&T, they're Verizon. And so what we're missing is towers. And as we become a 5G, 6G, 7G city or a smart city, air rights are going to play a big role in regards to that. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I want to touch on that too because CB has a chief technology officer. Her global budget is $500 million. Okay, and CB has been purchasing a lot of technology companies. You know, part of my day job, I do consulting. Example, Simon will call and say, we have a 1 million square foot mall and we don't need 1 million square feet. So what I will bring into the team, CB has a company or a group called Street Sense, and they will do a whole analytic analysis of that area. There's also something called Dimensions. Okay, again, it's analytics. There's location analytics, which is another group, and we'll bring them to the table. And so we've got labor, location, Street Sense. So we're bringing all these analytics platforms to the table to help the customer solve a problem. So analytics is large now, and it's going to become larger going forward. Anybody else with a question?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Bryant, and I work at Ship Capital, which is a private equity social impact real estate company and located in Kensington. I do finance there. My question is, how have you all navigated the gentrification conversation with your colleagues while working in commercial real estate?
So, and my answer may not be popular, right? And keep in mind, like I said, I grew up in North Philly. I grew up piss poor. So I'm not going to sit there and, try to say, oh, well, we can't do gentrification. We can or we can't. I think gentrification isn't the issue. I think the issue was that there was the wealth that was taken out of that community at one point. We look at gentrification and try to make the argument and say, well, hey, this is a bad thing. Well, the bad thing was taking these people out of the equation from the beginning, right? Because it's kind of like with rents. Rents go up because the cost of living goes up. And if you don't raise rent on either a tenant or even an apartment, what you're doing is you're hurting that person when they go back out to the market the next time. And that's basically the same thing that happens with gentrification, right? If you were paying $100 in rent in 1950 and today you're still paying $100 in rent, the next time you go see a house, you're like, whoa, 200, 300, what is this? You don't understand it because you were out of the game for so long and then it was just thrusted upon you. I think that gentrification needs to be done in a very reasonable and responsible way. So I'm not saying that, hey, I'm not for Aunt Susie or whoever else being kicked out of their home. What I am in for is for that to have resources and to have money pushed into an area to help grow that area and to maintain a healthy corridor. I always call the commercial corridors like the heart or like the body, it's the arteries, right? So if you clog your arteries, what happened? At some point you die, right? And so the same thing is what's been done to Philadelphia and every other city or any urban city, whereas though they clog the commercial corridors with crap and junk, and then they deprice the market itself, and then they come back into the market and say, well, we want to revitalize and change all these different things. And because the wealth that was taken out of that community for so long, we think that was okay. It's kind of like taxes. I don't want to pay any more taxes than anyone else, but I also recognize that taxes have an important part in our daily lives. So my issue isn't that I pay more taxes. My issue is if my schools suck. My issue is if the stores suck. My issue is if the streets can't be fixed. That's when I have an issue with paying for certain things. If I'm paying a number for something, I better get a damn good service, because that's what I'm paying for. And so I think, gentrification, we look at it based off of the end result, but the issue came way back here, not necessarily here.
I have to take this because I was at the city, so I look at gentrification completely different, and I'm not going to have a popular opinion here from everybody, so I'm just going to put that out there. I think that there's a difference between gentrification and resegregation.
Yes.
And I think people talk about gentrification and they don't realize they mean resegregation. So let's explain gentrification. Gentrification is a positive thing if you're on a street. Let's say you're on a street and there's 2 abandoned houses, and somebody comes in and fixes those abandoned houses and they sell it to people, and the value of your home goes up. You're happy. You're happy because there's no longer abandoned buildings on your block, and the value increased in your home. Now, I said 2 things. Your home. Now, if you do not own your home, you're going to feel the impact. I've never heard of anybody who owns their home get upset because their home value increased.
Why is this worth
You don't get upset that you bought at $80,000 and your home is now worth $300,000. You get upset when you're renting. I understand the taxes. I understand. I'm not discrediting that. It's a multifaceted thing, but I'm just saying in general, you're profiting at a higher scale. When you're renting and you do not own, and you do not have an opportunity to own, and your rent is no longer something that you can afford, and you're being forced out deliberately, that's where the issue comes into, I can't afford to live here anymore. The taxes are an issue, but like through the city, there are different programs in which you can fight that. I know, but and broadly, but listen, if you're gaining $300,000 or $100,000, I understand if you're at a fixed income, it could still be an issue, but you can ultimately sell at the end of the day, profit, and reestablish if you want to. You have equity. You could pull out that equity. The problem is, the real thing that we're not talking about is home ownership, and how most people do not own the homes, and they're being kicked out of communities that they've been in for several decades, and they don't have home ownership, and they can no longer afford to live there. And resegregation,
It's also a capital issue as well.
it is a capital issue, and it's multi-layered. It's not just one-dimensional. It's multi-layered. I said it's not going to be popular, but like we do have to deal with the fact that a lot of us do not own, a lot of us do not have access to capital, and a lot of us do not understand how to structure ourselves in a way where it's financially sound and we can leverage our taxes. Resegregation is when people are purposely accumulating a massive amount of real estate, renaming the area, redoing the business corridor, and purposely leaving you out of the conversation and not giving you an opportunity to be a partner in this program. And that's that on a massive scale, that's resegregation. And I think we need to, as a community and as a group of people, understand how to pull our resources together, understand how to have better banking relationships, understand how to tax structure ourselves in a certain capacity, understanding our rights in regards to appeal. And I think that is a conversation that's much broader, but it has to do with financial literacy. And I think a lot of us do not have a financial literacy conversation in regards to how to pass on real assets. So I'm sorry. That is
Okay. All right. Last question. Go ahead.
I just wanted to comment on what she was saying. I greatly agree with you, but I disagree in some aspects, because I'm a developer in the city.
Okay.
And I'm at the RCO meetings, I'm at the front of the ZBA. The biggest thing I found in our communities, because I've been in front of RCOs that are predominantly white, I've been in RCOs that are predominantly black.
Okay.
You get 2 different
Absolutely.
thought processes to the 2. The biggest thing is education.
I agree with you. We're on the same point
And
there.
what happens is what you're saying, I thought that. one time, and I thought, look, I'm in your neighborhood, I'm building this on your block, the value's gonna go up. It wasn't that that was gonna happen, because I knew that was gonna happen. I thought they thought it'd be a benefit. They don't know. And education piece is the piece of the people.
I agree. It's the financial literacy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
And just being from a city perspective in regards to planning, people didn't even know their rights or how. It was the financial literacy piece, even how to appeal. Like how to, go ahead.
So-
It's how to appeal. The problem is, so I'll say, if I'm in front of a predominantly African-American RCO,
Yes.
they have no understanding of
That's
what
very true.
is actually going to happen.
Well,
And so what happens is,
The fear kicks in.
when it's the fear piece, but it's like, and I think the city does a disservice because the city hides behind the fact that they use the fact that me as being a developer is raising the taxes. I'm not raising.
Tell people what the RCO is, so that people that don't know. Tell people.
Oh, I'm
Tell them what
sorry.
they know. Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
So
And
can I,
it's a
so-
Philadelphia specific thing, so if you're out in the suburbs, some of this is.
This is irrelevant.
So
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
stand in front of a predominantly white RCO, what you find is that they understand that they want development. They just want to make sure
It's the right
fabric
Correct.
of their neighborhood.
Correct.
The other side is the fact that, look, you're going to raise my taxes, you're going to push me out. It's an education piece.
I agree with
So
that.
I think there needs to be more education to the people to say, look, this is what it is. This is how you benefit. If you understand the rules, then you understand how to play the game.
We're saying the
Well, I
same
was gonna say,
thing.
yeah.
No,
Can-
no, no,
we're
just-
so-
I just wanted to-
Yeah,
just
I
wanted-
agree with
can I touch on that? And I'll say this.
Actually, I'd like to say something first.
Shoot.
My name is Linda Fonte. I am a real estate attorney here in Philadelphia County, Montgomery County, Delaware, Bucks County. And I grew up in Parkside and in North Philadelphia, portion of this board. So I'm familiar with.
Are you challenging me on my points?
So I understand the dynamics of these conversations and what happens when you enter these communities to do development. The reality is a lot of developers come in and they don't bring what I would call a community liaison to re-educate or educate, help people understand, homeowners, that this value increase can help you take care of those taxes. Let me explain to you how the city really works and what you can do if you want your neighborhood to continue to look something like this. Let me help you figure out how to organize your own RCO or expand this RCO and its power structure and how it's organized and you can have a say in what's going on. And you're right, a lot of times they have no clue, they don't even understand what brings their.
So-
I think we're at.
There's a way to not resegregate. There's a way to gentrify and have a
Let me-
concept. Mostly it starts with having an intent as a developer to communicate with the community that is there now and work with them to expand and build.
So real quick, and I think the biggest thing is a couple things, right? A lot of people were, and this is not about you or anything like that. A lot of people were to tag developer, and we think of development, we think of it as something positive, something that grows. So basic definition, right? Development means something good should grow out of it. The problem is that everyone that wears a developer tag is not actually good. That's first and foremost. Second is that, to your point, that people don't understand. So what happens is the developer comes in with this lawyer, he puts out, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and they sell a bill of goods that's no good, right? And the problem is that there's no one there on the community side to understand what it is that they're actually saying, to translate that over to them and to push back on that. And so me personally as a broker, I've taken the responsibility to say that, hey, as a broker, I refuse to put bad stuff in any neighborhood. And so you have to understand it as it pertains to trying to explain to people things that make sense versus things that don't make sense. You know, I've heard RCOs make the argument that they should have a Starbucks at Broad and Erie. Well, how does that make sense, right? It sounds great in theory that you have a Starbucks there, but when the people start going in for $5 coffee, how many of them are actually going to go to that Starbucks? So it's not that they don't need coffee, they don't need Starbucks. They need a quality tenant in the spot that can actually serve that community. So a lot of times, like you're saying, that the people don't understand. The developer gets by with that because they come in with their lawyer, and the lawyer's not talking to the people, he's talking to the person who's running the meeting itself. And a lot of times the fix is already in, and in that if there's no accountability right there, then a lot of times that plan just gets pushed through.
Just to bring it all the way back, like we went here, and just to bring it back, this is why you need to be in commercial real estate. It needs, because you can actually impact all of these dynamics. And this is the importance of why you're here today. If you want to play a role in regards to how your neighborhood is shaped, if you want to play a role into investment, if you want to play a role into how it's valuated, the business analytics, how it's marketed, all of that comes back to commercial real estate, how infrastructure is done in your neighborhood or section of the city. All of that comes down to commercial real estate, and there's careers within the industry that deal directly with all of these issues.
All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and do final comments from the panelists, and then we're gonna end the event. Before we do that, I want to make one more introduction. I would like to introduce to you guys another team member on our diversity team, Mr. Ramon Lockhart. He leads our veterans group. Ramon did 16 years in the Marine Corps, and so he helps us out with our veteran initiative. All right, so final comments from the panelists.
Ladies first, sorry. My final comment is, if this is something that is of interest to you, you have to love it. And if you love it, go all in. This is not one of those industries where you can put your toe into it and toe back. Go all in. You only live once. And there's so many different opportunities in this. I will say, I've never had the same day twice in this industry. Every day is different. If you like people, if you like engagement, if you like taking risks, if you like a return on your risks, if you want to challenge yourself daily and grow from it and see different places and do different things and meet different people, I would say this is the industry for you.
Yeah, I think I think commercial real estate is an ocean, okay? And the different segments and jobs are waves. So jump in the ocean, pick a wave, ride it, and it's, all the way in. If you want to switch, just jump on another wave, because there's a variety of jobs and in this industry. So, and finally, just be true to yourself. Just be true to yourself.
Just a little bit of a personal reflection. Like Tony and some other folks who grew up in North Philadelphia, and PHA Housing, and PHA is a client of mine now, which is kind of, the whole full circle thing is amazing. I went to public schools. The school district of Philadelphia is a client. So just a little bit of personal reflection. It's become a very personalized kind of industry for me. I just want to say, I want to be a resource to folks who want to talk more about the industry. So afterwards, if anyone wants to, my business cards or whatever, I'm happy to share it. And then I'm also always looking for good interns. So just want to say that.
I don't have much to say after that. For the most part, follow your passion, right? And if you get the opportunity to bet on yourself, take the bet every single time. So that's pretty much it.
All right, well, that concludes our event for today. Thank you everybody for coming out.